productive on a very excellent basis, okay? That is, what do we do actually in companies that causes, you know, the kind of relationships to be possible? And I hope that helps a little bit. I agree it's kind of disjointed. I want to tie it together maybe a little bit more. Maybe we can do that with the next assignment, okay? I don't think it's easy to be able to grasp some of what we're trying to say here. Let me go to this one. Okay, in your handout, I've tried to give you another table to be able to try to understand that, okay? If you don't have law and order, this is the kind of expectations you will have. And there are many countries in the world where an existing client, usually the routine is you've got a good relationship with an international existing client. And that client says to you, you know what, we really want you to come to XYZ country and build us something. Okay? That's the way it usually happens that U.S. contractors become involved in international. It's with a relationship with an existing client. Okay? Now, when you do that and you're involved in that sort of thing, and it happens more and more frequently, then you need to begin to ask, where is this country along this kind of continuum? Because if the legal structure doesn't exist, there's going to be a lot of this kind of stuff going on. Okay? Even when it does exist, in some cultures, in some environments, you're going to find people trying to press every limit legally. Coming to their lawyers and saying, I know it's not the right thing to do, but you got to tell me how I can do it and get away with it. That happens more and more frequently in our country than you might realize. Okay? Because it's not generally talked about. Okay, so if you're over in that kind of an arena, this is the kind of culture, the kind of state of learning, being, you know, what you really experience when you're in that kind of culture. I've been there, seen that, and seen the devastating results to the impact on productivity and costs of projects. Okay, now, on the other hand, if you have the typical routine of law and order, you have contracts and expectations according to the contract, and you are managing by contracts, then you have this kind of thing going on. Okay? On the other hand, many industries have realized that that's not where we want to be. That's not going to give us a competitive edge. And advanced people within those industries have said, what should we be doing? What is our vision of how we can win? We can improve faster than competition and really win. Okay? And they realize we can't do it alone. We have to do it with our employees. We have to do it with our suppliers, with our subcontractors. Okay, so what does that kind of an environment look like? And that's what we've tried to describe here. Okay? And so for your homework assignment, I want you to look at the scale from 1 to 3 and say, what's been my experience? Where have I seen things happen in these various categories? And when you come to class on Friday, we're going to split up in teams. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and split you up so you're not in the same groups anymore. Okay? And how do you talk about that? What's in your experience? Does that make sense? Okay? So again, try to grasp that this thing, there isn't, you know, an exactly right or wrong thing to do. It's a continuum of improvement, and grasping where you are gives you a vision for what could be, gives you a way to challenge yourself and those around you to make some steps forward. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, we started talking last time about the sources of power to motivate people. We talked about mutual benefit. We talked about trust and unity, love, gratitude, and now we want to go on with leadership by example. Okay? It's pretty hard to tell that when you recognize you're in the ditch, if you will, or that there's opportunity to improve beyond where systems, cultures, behavior currently is to where it ought to be if you're saying to others, you go do it, okay? And push them out of the, try to push them out of the ditch when you're down inside the ditch yourself, okay? In order to get people out of the ditch, normally you have to either decide to get out of it together, or you've got to be on the top reaching down and pulling others by example. Life's better here. Okay? Come up here and look and see. Okay? There's an enormous benefit to being able to lead by example. Okay, so one of the things that becomes very useful for you to do is to sit down with your executive team and managers, and or even individually if you can't get those people involved, and say, what behaviors should I be exemplifying? Okay? If I'm going to lead from above or below, however it is, what do I need to be? And what behaviors are going to be exhibited by what I am? Okay? Now I convinced my colleagues, the president of my company and my other executives to do that, and we created what we call a 360 questionnaire. And we went to everybody in the company, up and down on both sides, and we said, okay, how are we doing? And I posted the results of that, actually removed the names to protect the guilty, and posted that on the website for you, including my own. I didn't take my name off of it, okay? One of the things that you realize when you try to do this sort of thing is that you're going to be measured just right along with the rest of them. You know, there's risk in doing that, right? Because there's room for improvement. No matter who you are, there's room for improvement. And you'll see in the examples that there's a broad range of performance. And the next question is, okay, so this is what I am, you know, at least the way I'm perceived by those that I'm serving, that are serving me, and that I influence my peers with. Now what? What do I do to improve this? Does that make sense? So take a look at that. Think about it in terms of who you are and what you see. You know, everybody wants to be a really excellent manager, right? You've got to decide what character attributes, what behaviors, who do I need to be, what do I need to become in order to be that kind of executive, that kind of manager, middle manager, that will exemplify the best, right? That will propel me to excellence within the industry and the recognition and the pay and all of the things that come along with that, right? And avoid the problems of appearing to be one thing when in fact you are something else, and eventually it gets discovered and you're out, right? You want to avoid that because you really are. And people accept mistakes. What they don't accept is intent and fraud. Intent that is evil. Does that make sense? So give some serious thought to this. And what kinds of things, and how many of you have read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin? Anyone happen to have read that? Well, let me tell you, you need to read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Okay? It is a classic in the arena of human development. Okay? And this man was told by his aunt, flat out, Ben, if you are so obnoxious, if you don't change, you're never going to amount to anything. Okay? Well, how Ben took that rebuke is the classic. He didn't justify himself. He didn't just go on doing what he was doing. He began to look around and see among those that he respected what things they were doing that he wanted to become as well and be able to do. And by making his list, he came up with 14 things that he decided, I'm going to become like this. And every day he challenged himself to become more and more like those items. He reviewed how he was doing. And over time, he became the most adroit individual. I mean, you know him for, flying a kite and inventing or discovering electricity, right? Okay? But, oh my gosh, I mean, he invented libraries, he invented fire departments, he invented police departments. It came to the, yeah. And what? And bifocals. I didn't know that one. Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, this guy became so adroit that as a member of the early Congress, if you wanted anything passed in Congress, you went to Ben Franklin and got his buy-in, or modified it until you could get his buy-in, and then it would pass. And if you didn't get his buy-in, it wouldn't pass. Yeah.
Something that goes along with this really well, there was a Ben Franklin related notion. I was listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about Ben Franklin. And ironically, and he used an example called the stool model of like a bar stool. And he said that each of those have 3 or 4 legs, and on those you can consider legs, your talents, your skills, your morale, and your passions. And together that can make up, like, represent your life, and the top is what you become.
Right.
So he said, like, whatever you want to make of your life, take those things to the positive, take them to the top, and have the most elevated potential opportunity. Because the stool is down at the very bottom, it'd be useless. But they come up to the top to make sure they have the most positive. That was like his thing.
And that's beautiful. And look at what do you want those, I mean, what should those things be that create those legs of the stool, right?
Yeah.
And you got to decide, it's up to you. I mean, there is a legal backdrop, right? But oh my gosh, is that all you're going to do? Is just what is absolutely forced on you by contract or by law? Okay? That's the kind of person you can be if you want to. It's up to you, right? As long as you're obedient to law, they're not going to throw you in jail for it. But if you want to be the kind of person that will have a profound influence on those around you, that will enjoy the relationships that come from that kind of behavior, you have to take an active role in deciding what that is going to be. Okay? Because it doesn't just happen. Your mom and dad probably tried to make it happen as much as they could, okay? But now you're here, it's up to you what you do with that, isn't it? Okay. So take a look at that, and look at it as, what of these do I want to internalize with? Do I want to make my list like Ben Franklin did, and determine who am I? Who am I going to become? And how am I going to get that to happen? Right here. In my heart, in my mind. Okay? All right, integrity. That's the congruence. That's kind of a strange word between what we say and what we are. And that is often evidenced by pursuing the intent of what we said we would do when the circumstances change. The real test comes when you're stressed because it's not exactly what we thought it was going to be. Okay? Now, at that time, do you do the intent of what you committed to do? That's a test of your integrity. Does that make sense? Okay. Client-side managers of a mega project team decided to backfill a massive project site with unsegregated, unengineered, dredged material. Now the project must haul in far more expensive augmentation materials, conduct deep foundation mixing, costing hundreds of millions, actually about $1 billion, and months of additional time. Recommendations were made by a highly qualified geotechnical engineering contractors, but were overruled by the client project management. Well, you know, what happened is they stood back and said, well, you're going to find out. I was right. Yep. So what's wrong with that attitude? I mean, we're engineers, we're trained, we understand that that makes a difference, right? So what responsibility, if you look long range at the relationships, at the labor relationships, what's wrong with this? What do we have to do with our understanding, our superior knowledge of engineering to deal with this kind of thing? What could they have done differently? What do you suppose the relationship is once the owner finally came to the conclusion, yeah, I was wrong, and now it's costing me $1 billion? Is he going to hire that civil engineer again because he was so brilliant? I don't think so, right? So the engineer can be real smug and say, well, see, I told you so, right? But instead, what do we have to do? Having been blessed with the opportunity to go to civil engineering school and find out that that's going to cost a lot of money, what do we have to do? Not let it happen. So, okay, owner rejects it. What do you do? It's too darn expensive. I'm not going to pay for it. So, Mr. Engineer, what now?
Don't do it.
Yeah. What you gonna do? Okay. How?
Show them what they're about to do, and show them what we could do.
Yes, you've got to get through, don't you? Okay, somehow you've got to get them to understand. You understand it, can you dramatize it? Can you walk in there with a box of sand, okay, with some kind of a funky looking building standing on it, or, you know, piece of equipment, and shake it, and watch the thing tilt, and get through? Not everybody has the benefit of being in these kind of classrooms with you, right? So you've got to get through. Whatever it takes, you have to get through. You can't let your pride get in the way and say, well, by George, that, you know, smile at him, cordial hypocrite you are, right? You'll see. No, you can't let that happen. Does that make sense? And over again, you're going to find things that you know need to happen. That gives you a responsibility to make sure that you communicate, you learn how to communicate to others so that the right things happen, and you don't sit back and be a cordial hypocrite. Smile as if you know, okay, I said my piece. Okay. Senior executives of a leading EPC decided to cut overhead by issuing an edict that everyone below a director's level had to be 85% chargeable and clients or be laid off. Objections were made by a division president and a vice president insofar as value-improving practices, development personnel were concerned. The clients were willing to participate in funding the EPC work process improvement, but not at the 85% level. A 50-50 shared arrangement with clients was effective. Clients were paying for the EPC to improve their own work process so that the client would benefit, right? Okay, objections were overruled, and most of the innovative people pressing for improvements were either laid off or quit. What kind of a message does that send? We're talking the second largest EPC in the world here, folks. And they laid off almost their entire, they quit, their entire staff of value improving practices, the innovators within their company, because the clients were only paying for half the cost of it. Okay? All right. Okay, so you should be well into chapter 5 at this point, right? And don't forget the essay for Monday. Okay? Particular emphasis on not only how you actually handle it, but what you realize now, after the fact, perchance, that could have been done to handle it better, including any potential for avoidance, perhaps long before the negotiation. And remember that real lasting greatness comes from these kinds of attributes that we've been talking about. Okay? These are some important website locations and questions that you may have. You ought to know the answers to those questions. They're excellent questions. You get the drift? Okay? Okay, we talked about that already. Okay, so we're going to go into negotiating. Okay? This is, by definition, a communication between two or more people trying to determine the nature of future behavior. What are we going to do about this? Okay? We expect that this is going to be the conditions. What are we going to do? It's a new project. We're going to work together. Something that we're going to do in the future. Okay? Okay, so a little more elaboration. It consists of communication and interaction, involves a couple of more parties. The parties often have conflicting goals or interests. At least they appear to be that way, or we wouldn't have to negotiate something, right? If we could see clearly to where, you know, we're both aligned and going down the road together, then we don't need to negotiate something, right? Okay? But if we don't, then we gotta convince each other of something that's going to be done. So that may have a conflicting goal. It may be an unresolvable conflicting goal, or it may be, there may be a way that we can resolve it and actually go forward with a resolve, right? So that's the object. An optimal object is to come to unity, where all entities can be trusted to pursue mutual benefit. Okay? So yes, we can resolve it and say, you know what? We'll compromise. I'll take this much, you take that much, and we'll go forward. Right? Like we've demonstrated in, you know, the surveying error and some of the examples that were given in class. Right? We split the cost and we go on. Okay? That's a compromise, isn't it? Okay? Sometimes that's a very appropriate way to proceed with the negotiation, isn't it? Okay? Okay, if we have chess or poker going on, models have the assumption that parties have conflicting goals or interests, right? Only one person wins, right? The other person has to defend too, right? Okay, if we try to model reality a little better than just that, right? In the real world, then we can do a little better by talking about some additional, what we call negotiating styles. Which one we choose is based on both our confidence, that this morning, but now I'm thinking that's not so good. It's both our self-confidence in being able to negotiate through the process, as well as our faith in what each party believes is possible. Okay, does that make sense? You got to have confidence in yourself being able to, tread in this kind of water. Okay, that comes from experience. It also comes from self-trust. Okay, I have the technical ability to understand what these people are talking about. I know I've done my homework. I know what they want. I know what I want. And so I'm confident we can get together and resolve this, right? Maybe we don't even have to get together. Maybe I write it in a letter and I just elicit their response and we get it that way. Okay, it's still a negotiation, but it may not be a personal or formal meeting to negotiate it, okay? So we have styles of avoiding it, competing, accommodating, compromising, or collaborating with, I would suggest that trust in unity is sustained at the highest level, which is beyond, that is, it begins maybe in the compromising area, proceeds into the collaborating, and then it goes beyond that, because the collaboration is sustained, and we gain trust in one another's intent, capacity, ability to control resources, to actually make and keep commitments, and the intent for mutual benefit. Okay? So that's the beyond that I want you to grasp as possible. Okay? So, the avoiding style. Often it is with cordial hypocrisy. Hypocrite because we know darn good and well what we're saying is not what we believe. We're going to avoid talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay? So we avoid contact with difficult negotiations. Avoid the controversy. Avoid the situations that might create the tension. It's uncomfortable. Okay? In today's world, that's almost like putting a gun to somebody's head. You're making them uncomfortable. Well, you know what? Life's not comfortable. Get used to it. Okay? You don't want to avoid the conflict when the conflict makes a big difference. Right? Owner has decided something that's going to cost him a lot of money. Our reputation, my reputation's on the line. It's not comfortable. Get used to it. Okay? And sit down and figure out how you're going to get through. Talk with your peers. How do you handle this? Okay? But get through. Okay. This concern for relationship, concern for self. Of course, we're all vitally concerned about ourselves, right? But at the same time, we need to be vitally concerned about the other fellow and their needs, and not try to extract the uttermost farthing from any relationship. And I want to push you to do as much as you will for me until you're absolutely going to walk out the door if I ask for anything more, right? No, that doesn't give the kind of benefits. You got to let everybody win. And that means you're not extracting the uttermost farthing. Every last cent from a relationship. Does that make sense? You got to let them win too. Okay, the competing style. You persist until you get what you want. You try to outsmart, outtalk the other party, exploiting the other party's weakness in the negotiation. Okay? So we're down here again, focused on ourselves and insufficiently focused on the benefit of the whole. Okay? Maybe that's appropriate at some point. I don't know. I can't think of a time when it should be. But it is used from time to time. Okay, the accommodating style. Again, often due to lower economic power. I'm a subcontractor. I want this job. I got to have this job. I'm going to lose my crews. So I'm going to pretty well, get everything I can get. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to take what they offer. Right?